So we're going to be converting your angles between degrees and radians today. So we kind of skipped over this yesterday. We're going back to it today. So how you do that is right here. So if you're going from radians to degrees, you're going to multiply by 180 over pi radians, however many you have. And then if you're going from degrees to radians, you're going to multiply by pi radians over 180. And that's basically it. Have we done this before? A little bit? Okay. So, yeah, we're just going to go at it. A couple of them that you should maybe already know is like 360 degrees is 2 pi. That's why when we were trying to figure out the measure for those pizza slices, we did 2 pi divided by how many slices, because that's all the way around your circle. And then 180 is just 1 pi. So those are some that you should already know. And we'll just go converting. So for this first section, we're going from degrees to radians. So we're going to be multiplying by pi radians over 180. So we're doing 60 times pi over 180. That's all you got to do. Is that okay? So we'll do 60 times pi over 180, and we can type that. Let's simplify it first and get like a radian answer, and then do y'all want to have decimal answers as well? Do we like those or not really?
No.
No? Okay, then we won't worry about that. So 60 over 180, will that simplify it all?
Yeah.
1/3? So that's really just what? Pi over 3. Is that okay?
How you do that?
Does that make any sense? Yes, so maybe. So what do we have questions on right now? Anything? All right, so the next one we're going to do 150 times pi over 180. So 150 times pi over 180. So we've got to see if 150 over 180 will simplify or reduce to anything. 5, 6, that's going to be 5 pi over 6. Okay? All right. So the next one is negative 45 degrees. So we know that with negative angles, like we talked about yesterday, that it's going to come backwards around. So it's actually like here. Does that make sense? Since it's negative. So we could instead go like all the way around and figure out what what positive angle it would be. So to do that, you just do like 360 minus 45, and that's going to tell you what positive angle it would be. And we can convert it that way. So what is 360 minus 45? 360 minus 45. 315. So let's do 315 times pi over 180. So then we've got 315 over 180. Will that reduce? 7/4, so that's going to be 7 pi over 4. And the last one that we have is 90 degrees. So does anybody know this one already? Or can we figure this one out? If 180 is just pi, then what would 90 degrees be? Pi over 2, yeah. So, and if we multiply that out, you would have 90 times pi over 180, which is just pi over 2. Questions on any of those? Alright. So the next section, we're converting from radians to degrees. So this time you're going to multiply by 180 over pi instead. So we've got pi over 6, and we're going to multiply by 180 over pi, so pi over 6 times 180 over pi. Your pi's are going to cancel, and you've got 180 over 6. What does that reduce to? 30. So that would just be 30 degrees. Questions on that? Alrighty. So looking at the next one, we've got 3 pi over 2. And to convert that to degrees, you're going to multiply by 180 over pi. So again, your pi's are going to cancel. And then we've got 3 times 180 all divided by 2. I think it's a little bit easier to go ahead and do the 180 divided by 2 if you're not using a calculator, and get 90, and then multiply that by 3. And what do we get? 270. Questions there? All right. so for the next one, we've got a negative angle again. So again, instead of going around like normal, it's going to go backwards. So we need to figure out what angle that would be since it's gone backwards instead. So 3 pi over 4. We could do 2 pi minus 3 pi over 4, and that would give us the positive angle, right? Like last time we did 360 minus 45, and that gave us the positive angle. So if we do 2 pi minus 3 pi over 4, what do you get? A decimal. 5 pi over 4. So 5 pi over 4. And then we're going to multiply that by 180 over pi to convert it to degrees. So the pi's cancel. And then we've got 5 times 180 divided by 4. Can you do 180 divided by 4? Will that get evenly? Oh, the whole thing is 45? Is that right? No.
180 divided by 4.
Is 45. Then multiply that times 5. What do we get? 220. Is that okay? All right. So I'm gonna like pause for just a second. So when you've got an angle that is like the same, it lands in the same place. So like that negative angle, and then we found the positive angle, and they're the same thing. Those are called coterminal angles because they end in the same place. Have you heard of that before? Is that something you've heard? Maybe not. So that's what those are. So those are just angles that land in the same place. We're gonna do more with those later, but that's like your brief introduction to those. The last one that we've got there is like 3 radians. So we're going to multiply that by 180 over pi. And this one we're probably going to want as a decimal because the pi is not going to cancel, right? So we've got 3 times 180 all over pi. And what is 3 times 180? 540, is that what we said? So we've got 540 over pi. As a decimal, what is that? Yeah, I rounded to 0.89. Is that okay? The only reason we went to a decimal there is because it didn't reduce anything. Are we going from radians to degrees? Yeah. So it didn't come out nicely, but that's okay. Questions on any of those? Alrighty, so for the next one, we want to know how many radians are in 135 degrees. So what do you need to do to figure that out? And then 35 times. Well, we're either going to multiply by 180 over pi or pi over 180. You're going from degrees to radians. So it's pi over 180. So times pi over 180. So 135 over 180, does that reduce to anything? 3/4. So this would just be like 3 pi over 4. The next one, we want to convert pi over 3 to degrees. How are you going to do that? Over pi. So your pi's canceled, then we've got 180 over 3. What does that simplify to? 60. Next one, we're going to do 120 in radians. So if you're converting degrees to radians, what do you multiply by? Pi over 180. So 120 over 180, what does that reduce to? 2/3. So 2 pi over 3. And the last one we got there, we've got 5 pi over 6, and we want to convert that to degrees. So 5 pi over 6 times what? 180 over pi. So your pi's cancel, and then 180 over 6, what is that? $180 over 6, what do we get? 30 times 5. 150. Is that okay? Questions on any of those? Alright, cool. So at the bottom, I've got like a little chart that's going to help you. Those are like your familiar angles. Those are the ones that are going to be like on your unit circle. So it would be helpful to memorize those. I'm not saying you got to like sit down with flashcards and like memorize them all, but I think you will just like them already use them. So yeah, that's it. That's all we got today.
We're doing those and you pack